morning. It is Friday, July 26th, 2024. This is Option Pit Live. I'm Mark Sebastian, your only option, and I am joined once again by Leisha J. Leslie, the queen of the candles. Good morning, Leisha.
Good morning.
Just got to spend, the good part of a week with you in Chicago, and it was a lot of fun. And we'll get into what happened at the Option Pit conference here in a little bit, but it was absolutely a joy getting to hang out with you, Leisha.
It was fantastic. I had the best time with you
Yeah,
and our team and our clients, and it was fantastic.
Yes, and just amazing discourse the entire time. All right, so we've got some pretty big announcements that just hit. USPCE, this is the Fed's preferred gauge of inflation. Actual 0.1, previous was 0, estimate was 0.1. The year over year was 2.5 versus 2.6 previous. Estimate was 2.4. That's a touch hot. Core came in line, and then U.S. core year over year 2.6 versus an estimated 2.5. So just a tiny bit hot, but not, nothing crazy. Futures had been up about, pretty aggressively overnight. And today they've pulled back a little bit, but not a ton. I'm talking right now, futures are up about 42 points. That's 0.8%. That's a nice bounce after what was a really ugly close, Leisha. I don't know if you saw what happened on the close yesterday.
Oh, I did.
That was a brutal final 10 minutes of the day. They really took it to the market. We were kind of, up to flattish most of the day. In the last 10 minutes, dropped close to 30 points. It was pretty aggressive. So there's your PCE numbers. What do you think, Leisha?
Well, let me show you. We had a 100-point swing yesterday, didn't we?
Yeah.
Which created a lot of inverted hammers, dojis, a lot of highway candles, and a lot of stocks. Very interesting. The SPX is right down to my support, the lower level of this latest pitchfork, and pretty much stopped there. Made a little bit, a couple points lower, but pretty much stopped there. Now today we're getting follow through. I think if we clear that all important, 5450, we may be ready for a bounce. And I say that because remember this back here, this gap, we closed that gap yesterday.
Oh yeah, just about.
Actually, on SPY it closed. I'm sorry, ES. Yes, on the futures it closed the gap.
Oh wow.
So
we closed the gap.
Take your choice, which one, Yeah, we close the gap, and a lot of times when you close the gap, you continue in the same direction. Now, I'm not saying that's the end of it, but it's very possible.
Well, certainly I feel like the market is ready for a breather. It's been a very rough couple of days. We're now down on the month of July. Had given up a chunk of June. So there's definitely room, I believe, for at least the market to take a breather. I think the NASDAQ meltdown has caught people particularly flat-footed, right? The NASDAQ is going up forever was the mantra I kept hearing. It again is having a nice rebound day. We've had a couple of days where we've started off with some nice rebounds. It's pulled back. Or we have a one day with a really nice rally, and then they use that as an opportunity to start selling. What are you seeing in the triple Q?
Triple Q also traded right down to the support of a previous pitchfork, right at the top there, which is this latest pitchfork just below there. So some pretty good support at this level. Now, these are some very bearish red candles. So we need to clear, I would say, at least yesterday's high to say that, okay, we may have a rebound here.
All right. The other kind of interesting thing was during all this selling, we've seen the Russell 2000 have an incredible move and then consolidate and now kind of try to make a decision here, right?
Yes, and this I would call a bull flag. Sure enough, this morning, pre-market, we're right at the previous highs here. We can clear those. I have 227 as the next resistance, and then above there, 233.40.
Well, and this is one of the things we were talking about the conference is, the Russell 2000, where the strength is coming from. And, the perception that rates are going to be pulled back is
Right,
very bullish for the Russell.
small caps.
Yeah. But, you're saying, well, if the Russell's so bullish, why is the whole market pulling back? Well, is the Russell 2000 worth the value of Apple? I'm not 100% convinced that it is. Because I'm just that is how just how much air Apple and Amazon and Nvidia and Microsoft swallow.
Look at Apple. Speaking of Apple, I need to add it to my list here. Get a
To
nice
the
bounce in there. We may rally back. We do have earnings though.
Yeah, earnings are coming up. We got a
The
few of these.
first.
Yep, earnings are coming up. We have had two bad earnings. I mean, one of the themes that you, me, Andrew, and Frank have been talking about is how the earnings need to go. Good isn't good enough. Great isn't even good enough. Perfection is the only thing the market will want. So take a look at Google. Google earnings, they beat bottom and top. They're announcing a dividend, and YouTube was a little soft, so they came out and just pasted it. And then
Yeah,
obviously yesterday ChatGPT out with their search. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but that didn't help the cause either.
I read the headline, targeting Google, right? Coming after
Mhm.
their market share.
I mean, look at that. Just
Yeah, that's a very mild bounce, if anything, 60 cents this morning.
yeah. And then Tesla on the other hand did have it was one of the kind of the brighter, it looked like one of the bright spots yesterday.
Although it was down $30 after earnings.
Yeah.
Sitting on support here.
Yeah, could be an interesting one.
Yeah, I think it may just hang out here for a while.
Uh all right. Well, what other charts are you I mean, one of the things that was interesting on Wednesday was at the end of the day after we were down, I was like, well, at least bonds are up. No. Oh, gold. Well, I had looked and gold had been up earlier in the day, and I was like, well, gold's got to be up. No.
No,
They
gold got
basically sold
pounded.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're basically selling everything. What do you think of bond market? Where are you looking at the bond market and in precious metals?
Well, the bonds here are holding my support. So they seem to be trying to retest this. This is 10-year, this previous high. Or they could just be consolidating here. TLT, not as bullish looking, but we may have a Harami candle in here today and trying to stop that sell off. Let's take a look at the dollar. The dollar consolidating, holding support though. Gold futures, yeah, massive sell off yesterday. So it's interesting because we have, a change in trend candle here. We get the sell off of this rally. You think this could become a doji and you get a rally again when it starts to trade higher, but then you get that big reversal and this becomes just a bear flag off of this big bearish candle. And sure enough, you take another leg lower. Now I like to see this bullish piercing. I like to see the futures, trade up to this resistance level, almost 2,400, before you can say this is going to turn around.
Speaking of earnings, this is coming from the audience. DTNTC is asking, speaking of earnings, did you look at DXCM? Do you have some support targets and thoughts there? This one had a not a happy earnings cycle. Overnight right now,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Oh,
it's down $40.
wow.
So it's currently trading $68. I'd imagine that's
That
out of any pitchfork that you're going to create.
that's pretty bad there. Well, according to this, it could go, well, wow. It's way down here.
Yeah, it's at
That's
your new,
amazing.
it's at your
It's at
median
the
line.
median line. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, so you're sitting basically at support here. You know, after blowing through, the first line, you're basically at support from post earnings because man, this thing looks terrible.
Yes, it does.
What was that low from?
Here,
Yeah, was that 70?
75. We're even below that.
Yeah, I mean that is.
That's
So
crazy.
that median line. I mean, if that doesn't hold, the downside here is pretty ugly. But again,
Okay.
good isn't good enough. They've got to be perfect.
Well, I have to
Otherwise, you
tell
can't.
you, I have to give you and Andrew credit because you guys said that before all the earnings even began coming out. You called it. You said if these earnings, they're going to be the catalyst, right, of the end
Mhm.
of this giant rally. You guys called it. I have to tell you, they weren't
Well,
perfect. We could see a pullback, and sure enough, that's exactly what happened.
yeah. Well, and we're only at the front end of earnings season. I think next week is the big one that really matters, right? Because that's when we get Microsoft, which is going to be on the 30th. We get Apple on, I believe, August 1st.
Hmm.
Amazon is going to be August 1st. Meta is July 31st. Let me just check on the final two. Broadcom and Nvidia are at the end of August. So then we'll have gotten basically six out of by next Friday we'll have six out of the eight of the great eight uh basically done. So that's basically the bulk of earnings season that's going to be done by August 1st, the ones that really matter. So next week is going to be pivotal.
Yes, yes, yes. And those will create either another leg lower or on our way to recovery, right? We're not just going to sit here, especially with
Yes.
all these giant high wave candles. That's mass confusion. That's, we're going to move one way or the other.
Yeah. um all right, well, any other charts that you wanted to run through, Alicia?
Sure, Bitcoin.
Yes.
Bitcoin up against the resistance, pulled back a little bit. We had a very nice hammer yesterday, and today we're trading higher. I think Bitcoin's going to reach these previous highs, another 1,500 points, and then move up here, 69, back to 70,000.
Okay. Kind of interesting.
Yeah,
All right. Well, if let's bring in let's rope in Andrew and see what he's got to say. Uh Andrew, again, good it was great seeing you in Chicago.
Yes, it
We had
was.
ourselves a great time. We're going to talk a little bit about some of our reactions to the event here in a second, but let's start with the news at hand. PCE comes in just slightly hot. Prior to the announcement, futures have been up, call it 50.50, 55.
yeah, they
We're
were
now pulling
only
back
up
a
40.
little bit. We're up 38. So they don't love them.
Yeah,
Back days, where economic data was a little better than expected yesterday, and inflation a little bit higher than expected. What's your reaction?
Well, I think, I think this kind of shuts down the early rate drops. I mean, we could have the political rate drop, but there's certainly no inflationary reason, right? If all the numbers were coming in really light, it would be a different story, but they're not. So there's no real, it's hard to make the case for that, for rates coming in a little harder, but there could be the political rate cut, but who knows? But at least for right now, you can't really make the inflation coming in case right now. The second part is just, market in general. Like, I'm like, well, in my head, Q450 is a 10% down from the top, which
Right.
would be a pretty good haircut on the Qs. And we were talking about this at the conference just a little bit. Like, remember when some of the earnings are coming out, like we said, we had talked like everything has to be perfect, and nothing was perfect. Nothing was perfect. So I think, so traders are like, okay, we're just going to take them all down and assume they're not perfect at this point, because we didn't get them. So I think they just took all the stocks down. I mean, and and that's what we got, down 10%. What is it? 10% is a correction and 20% is a bear market, right? So
Something like that.
I mean, literally almost down to the number. They took the Q down 10%. It's kind of crazy how that's where it went. But
Yeah.
Well, we came
so
within
now
like
the thing is
the
are there
triple
gonna
Q
be
came within about 30 cents of its 100-day moving average as well.
Oh, really?
Which I thought was kind of interesting.
So I think you get the market reaction that you expect. And like I said, we weren't hugely surprised by any of this. But it was it was good this week to unload some long VIX for once, to actually make some money dumping VIX calls. So that was okay, but not huge. I mean, we could get into VIX later, but we're not at a 23 or a 24, considering how much
How quickly
stocks
we
actually have sold off from the top, just on a dollar basis. So
well, I mean, part of the sell-off has been that it's been a narrow, we talked about the rally being narrow. The sell-off was kind of narrow, right? If you look at advancers, decliners, they were, on that day we were down, what was that Wednesday when we were down over 2% for the first time in 350 days or so.
Yeah.
That one was a pretty red day where everything was down. But outside of that day, advancers, decliners has not been that negative. We've seen strength in, the
Well, look at
Russell or
IBM.
the Dow. Yeah.
Right. IBM up 10. That was one of the stocks we picked last year, right? Remember the, Watson AI, and all of a sudden, it was $130 stock and went to $200. So there are, companies that weren't priced for perfection are doing okay. They really hit the perfect, everything that was trading at, and I granted there's a lot of growth in AI and all that kind of stuff, but the numbers started getting a little bit, you got to admit they're in crazy town, right?
They were getting a little cuckoo bananas.
They're getting a little cuckoo. So, and it's normal, but other stocks that, did generate some decent earnings, IBM up $10 is not nothing in a market that looked pretty ugly actually yesterday.
Yes.
So I do like the thesis. I do. It's kind of been a hard, narrow rally up on those stocks, Mark, as you said, like all year. I liked your conference idea. I mean, we can get into the conference ideas, but and now that they're giving some of that back, and that's, I think, why VIX is reacting, because the market's moving, but you're not getting, there's no panic in the curve. There's nervousness, but I don't see it's not a panicky curve at all.
No. Yeah. All right. So the headline that I think in the stock that's really probably has the worst looking chart out of those names. Well, Nvidia might have Nvidia's got a better looking chart than Google. ChatGPT is creating a search GPT. It will summarize what you're searching for. It's doing some cool stuff.
Is that Microsoft ChatGPT?
they own a stake in it, and it's embedded in a lot of what they do. Obviously, Google's working on their own AI, but anytime Chat GPT is kind of taking all the air in the room, uh, Google is really legitimately under threat here. Is this a BlackBerry Apple moment?
It's now down on the day.
Think about that, right? Remember BlackBerry at one point in time? It was
it was it.
It was it. The Crackberry, right? All the marketing and lawyerly people on their little typing cell phone, chatting with people. And Apple basically took their lunch and destroyed that company.
Right.
That's what I think people are worried about with Google, and Google is a near $2 trillion company.
Yep. And I got rid of my Google last year, which I held for a long time because of the
Google's almost $3 trillion.
Yeah.
Oh, that's NVIDIA.
It definitely has.
Yeah, Google's $2 trillion
for competition to eat its lunch a little bit. Everybody's used to Googling, but all of a sudden Apple puts something on their phone, that's an easier AI search that actually works. You're all of a sudden the hegemony sort of breaks down a little bit. So yeah, I think Google is under threat by just about, you have to be honest, by almost everybody. I think that was another problem with YouTube because that was their kind of dominant space. And I think there is some leakage to maybe some other platforms. So yeah, Google definitely is a company that makes tons of money. It's been very successful, but at this point, what they do can be replicated now, I think, a lot certainly easier than 10 years ago. People do have habits that are tough to break, but that all those other tech companies are coming after their search business.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus the profitable piece.
Yeah.
Alicia, what are your thoughts on this whole thing?
Competition's good, right?
Yes.
Google's been in trouble for their searches. Supposedly, they're not always fair on the way their results pop up, from what I understand. I guess we'll see.
Absolutely. All right. Let's just spend about 3 minutes talking. So the last starting on Monday through Wednesday, I had option pit traders, subscribers from all over the country in Chicago. I also had everybody that works at Option Pit fly to Chicago, and we all got together for a 3-day conference. Andrew, myself, Leisha all presented ideas, and I also bring in outside experts. People that you might see Andrew, myself, and Leisha interacting with on Twitter all the time. Jim Carroll, Mark Longo, Mike Tusaw, the Thompson boys, Mike and Matt Thompson, Noel Smith, Kevin Green, just a really good Russell Rhodes, just a really good list of speakers. And I would say the theme of the week was finding ways to get convexity, finding smarter ways to hedge would be to hedge or to own downside tails in case the market does blow up, was kind of the theme I took away. What was did any speaker did you find any speaker particularly interesting to you, Andrew and Leisha, or one that you're going to use to take action on?
Do you want to go first, Leisha? Go ahead.
Sure. Well, for sure, Kevin Green, Thinkorswim has you can watch the volume by minutes and 0 DTE options. So I'm definitely going to incorporate that.
Yes,
I thought Josh's explanation of the Fed and how that was fantastic. just the broad overview and how he looks at the markets and where to put his money. They were all fantastic, actually. We had literally pieces from each of them. I learned from all of them, actually.
I think we had the best roundup of total speakers this year we've ever had. I was pretty.
I agree.
I like Noel. He talking about stocks like opportunities for this quarter, for this year, like high frequency trading stocks, a more volatile market. They're going to make more money. We had talked about I don't want to get into but those companies, the transaction companies, and one of the themes is like the growth of option trading. How and that's part of our portfolio coming down the line, but what an important component equity options now are for a lot of funds, looking for the volume and the activity. So that it was very good in that way. And also, again, made me think about looking at stuff like dispersion indexes, things that I don't normally look at, but those are also things that could contribute to volatility, which is, a lot of what we do. And new stuff. We learned, the SIBO is going to launch a variance future swap for the I guess the third time. That they think they've got third time's the charm on it. So there is more and more interest and growth in this space, in what we do, like teaching people. Well, obviously for us, it's a good thing, right? Because we're in the teaching people about options business in general. But yeah, I enjoy that. I got a stock idea from out of it. So I'm going to start my nibbling process on buying it. So again, I enjoyed it a lot. Conference. I can't stay out past 9 o'clock though, clearly anymore. Every night, like,
yeah,
Andrew, come on.
Andrew also forgot he was in the city.
Yeah. The amount of times, the first day it took Andrew a day to recenter himself to urban life, because we were like, this is not a country road where you're not going to see a car for the next hour and a half.
Yeah,
you got to look both ways, Andrew.
That was hilarious.
I'm not walking down my road. Yes.
All right, let's take a second to look at Leisha and I are before we maybe catch a cab on Andrew's vehicle. Let's take a look at a couple quick stocks that Leisha and I are watching. Leisha, I'm watching. Last week I threw out NFE. And I looked really smart for a day, and then they just took that thing to the woodshed. So if you bought it on Friday morning and sold it Monday morning, you were a happy camper. Otherwise, although this one might be worth taking another look at. The stock I am really interested is CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike's kind of like a they had kind of like a mini Boeing moment, if you will. But
yeah.
People are still going to be forced to buy their product and use their product. They've got a pretty deep customer base built in. Maybe there's more downside. Timing this thing is probably not going to be easy, but it's getting to a level where I think it's starting to get interesting from an investment perspective.
I would put some support in at this previous low over here from January, down at 239.60. But until you get a change in trend candle with some evidence, I would hold off.
We need an update.
Yeah.
We need an uptick, exactly.
Yeah, it's just one I'm keeping an eye on. I think there'll be an opportunity to go long there in the next day or two.
Yeah.
Leisha, any names that you're loving?
I do. I think Micron. Micron's traded down to the bottom of my pitchfork with a very nice doji yesterday. But if we can clear yesterday's highs, I think Micron could be on the road to recovery.
You
Had
know,
nice
what's
volume
funny,
yesterday too.
some of these chip names that have seen a ton of downside. Yesterday in particular, I saw a lot of bullish action in the options.
Oh, did you? I
Um,
got to take a look.
Buyers of the August 120, 120, the 120, 125 call spread.
And Micron?
September, yeah, and Micron. September
Awesome.
call buyers. The August 2nd 114s. We saw a just across the board bullish flow in Micron and in Marvell. Those were the two
Oh,
chip names
that's
that had a
interesting.
lot of bullish paper.
I wrote about Marvell last night. It'll be coming out this morning. I think that also could be primed for a bounce here.
Well, there you have it.
Giant high wave candle. Well, that's good to know. Thank you. My other one is, like I said, Bitcoin looking bullish. I'm big BITO can trade back up here with Bitcoin rallying 2463, which is already trading 23 half right now. So another point.
Well, crypto looks kind of interesting. I was kind of interested. So, I flew American to and from. Obviously, planes were crowded. Aunt Frank was supposed to speak, and because of the CrowdStrike outage, we had him come in remote. He broke down in a great discussion about, without trying to say I want this person or this person to win, kind of broke down what each party's policies are and who the winners and losers would be. And Bitcoin and crypto were one of the pieces they were talking about. That would be one where JD Vance apparently is a huge blockchain fan. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So, it would have been nice if Frank had gotten to Chicago, but unfortunately, Frank decided to fly United Airlines instead of flying the only reliable form of transportation, the form of transportation that will never let you down, and that is Andrew's trading vehicle. Take it away, Andrew.
There we go. So I got some interest. I've been a owner of SIBO stock for a little while. And after this conference, I'm still adding. I'll add to the shares on pullbacks, but I think it's a long-term growth stock in this area. But today I learned something new. So Ruben, if you want to put up the slide, is never thought of it before, but quite surprised when I dug in a little more. This is Virtu Financial. Now, last week we had talked about, when the curve flattens, you want to buy VIX strangles. That was a very successful trade. Through this week, I sold all my VIX calls basically. I sold the last of them yesterday. But here, this is a high frequency trading firm. I don't know which. I'm part of Getco anyway. Not quite sure. But I heard about them. And I have heard about them peripherally, but steady earnings growth. That's the bottom line. So you're kind of, I feel like with this company, they're kind of liquidity provider, liquidity taker, depending on, whatever secret stuff they're doing. But it makes money. Now, one thing I noticed here is you have had a pretty steady move in Virtu, meaning you're getting a little bit more volatility than normal, right? So you have this blue line here is sort of the 30-day realized vol, and it's pretty steady. Like I said, it kind of a steady stock, doesn't do very much, even though their business is very exciting, or high frequency trading is actually kind of boring if you do it right. Which apparently they do. And they pay a 24-cent dividend a year, but it trades at a relatively low vol. Right now, they're trading at a relatively high vol, huge earnings spike. again, to me, which says the more volatility we have, the better they're going to do. But you have like relatively low option prices. So that 30-day volatility. So what you have is, a market that has increasing volatility overall. VIX going basically from 12 a couple weeks ago to 17, 18 yesterday, 18 and a half. And you have relatively low option prices with kind of a spiking stock. Now this, again, I think you have a chance for, all of a sudden people are looking also to place money somewhere. So you have a stock that has relatively low multiple, high dividend payout. You're sitting on your 100 times, 200, 300 times earnings, chip stock. A stock like Virtu that has a pretty steady history of success, I think would bring more buyers in. So my idea would be here, just buy calls in September. You could probably hedge to the low end somewhere here. Again, they could be dragged down by market news, but I think volatility is relatively low. I'm looking to try anyway, maybe even September 27s. We'll see today as things move, depending maybe September 28th. It pays a 24-cent dividend at the end of August. So just be somewhat mindful of the dividend coming out. But again, I think you could buy a cheap put for a hedge and a call. And because of the conditions we're in, market being a little jiggy right now, vol going up, you're buying relatively low vol in the high frequency group. Both Virtu and SIBO has been performing very well overall into this market sell-off. So my trade would just be strangles, leaning a little long. And for myself, I'll be adding shares if I can, probably selling a couple of puts at first. But my idea, and generally when I want to like sort of enter a stock before I put it permanently in my retirement account, would be like go in with some strangles short term and then sell a couple of puts long term to acquire some stock and see what happens. And if things kind of pull back too much, you'll have that one put to kind of deaden your entry price. But yeah, if I could get in for 24, 23 bucks or something like that, that would be fine with me. But then short term, I think actually we'll see new highs in it. And I think SIBO also will probably approach the 200 line, especially if this market churn keeps going. So that is my trading vehicle for today. You might as well ride the financial stocks that will most directly benefit from the churn we are having right now. And that is Andrew's trading vehicle.
What a great vehicle, Andrew.
Thanks
Lisa,
for the ride.
Real quick, we've got a chart request on Qualcomm. That is another one. Obviously, they have earnings next week, so it's dangerous jumping. But that had been, from our very first show, that was the stock that I was touting. It has fallen out of bed since hitting 200 and near 220.
Yeah. Not looking so great. Excuse me. Support down below here comes in at the median line, 167.
All right. 167 would be a clear spot. It might, on less than perfect earnings, that would be one that it would get to. But this one's really had a rough go.
Yeah.
I'm going to be looking for an entry here. I think it's fallen far enough from the top. All right, so here we are. We are S&P futures. After topping out at 54, almost getting up to the vaunted 5,500 level. We're now back to 54.78. Testing 54.75, which would also be kind of where VWAP is for this session. The Qs are off their highs, but still looking pretty bullish. What's your outlook for the rest of the day?
I have to say, I really thought it was going to be a powerful opening, and now I don't think they like the PCE so much. I don't know. Is it an opportunity to sell the open? I'm not sure. I'm a little confused this morning.
Andrew?
I think we'll struggle to stay green by the end of the day. That would be my my guess. And I think the biggest reason is we are still in this earnings cycle. I think the reason that volatility is up the way it is because we're still going to keep chopping until Apple at least comes out. The earnings cycle has to be played out. So from a volatility point of view, if you're looking at the next vol cycle, we're still in the earnings cycle. We're not out of it. So yeah, I'm going to say, I think we'll struggle to stay green by the end of the day. I don't think it will be a huge green day. It will be like a low, like small, if that, but I think we're going to just keep chopping until Apple earnings come out.
Yeah, I'm always, in a declining market, on a no news or maybe not great news gap higher, I am always skeptical of. That the market loves to try and rope people into this is a bottom. You better jump in, only to sell so they can use that to dump onto whoever the bottom, the people trying to find a bottom. When I'm trying to pick bottoms, I actually look for ugly gap downs, and that's usually an opportunity to go long. So I'd be more bullish if I know this sounds crazy, but I'd be more bullish if we were gapping lower below the 100-day moving average in the Qs, and that might, and the market might use that as a spot to actually go long.
I would say don't be fooled until after we clear yesterday's highs.
Yes. Now, if you watched Alicia's pitchforking all these ideas today and are like, boy, I'd really love to learn that, I've got good news for you. Alicia is holding Option Pit's very first ever master class. If you're not a subscriber to Profits and Pumps, which Alicia mentioned, she rolled out some ideas on Marvell just last night. It's always worth reading. It's one I pay attention to. And you'd like to learn to attend, you'd like to attend Alicia's masterclass. One, subscribe to Profits and Pumps. It's free. It's great. Two, check your emails for that opportunity to join Alicia's masterclass and learn everything you need to know about pitchforks, dojis, in bullish and bearish engulfing, high wave. Yeah, you name it. Alicia is going to teach it to you, along with also things like risk management, option selection. It's going to be really, you're going to come out of this class feeling competent to, at a minimum, trade with Alicia, which is always the right thing to do anyway. So for information, please be checking your email. And like I said, go to optionpit.com, join Profits and Pumps. It's free and it's valuable. It is 9:15 Eastern, 8:15 Central, so we're up against it. Another great show. So I want to thank Andrew T. Giovinazzi for joining us, the Viking of Volatility, and Alicia J. Leslie, Queen of the Candles. I am Mark Sebastian, your only option. We'll be back with you next Friday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, as we are just about every Friday. Can't wait to see you. This was Option Pit Live. Have a good trading day and a great weekend.
Bye-bye, everybody.
You know how the financial world goes. Here comes the buzzkill. Please make sure to take some time to read this boring disclaimer. We will owe you one.